Denola, it's great to have you on the show.
Hi.
Thank you for coming.
Of course. I mean, there's only one person I'll breathe a pandemic for. So.
I know, right? Like, I'm actually quite excited because you mentioned that you haven't been out at all. So this is your first time, and it was with me, so I'm very grateful.
Well, I mean,
and excited.
I'm happy to be here. So
excited. You know what's interesting? Like, I know, like this COVID period, like you mentioned, like you've not been coming out and stuff. And I kind of want to talk about like presence, right? Because I noticed like do you feel like your quotes have become a bit deeper online? Like you're discovering a lot more about yourself?
Yeah, I think it's been like that even before COVID. Yeah. Because I started being a bit more mindful since 2018, but then, definitely spending more time with myself and, having like very private meltdowns during the pandemic really does make you a bit more introspective. So I have been a bit more introspective for sure.
I think you've been introspective and you've also shared more than you normally would, because it was almost like you had that space that was you've considered like your private personal space, and then and I think it's beautiful to kind of share because people can see a different side of you beyond the Denola energy guy that we see around, right?
I mean, I think for the longest time I wanted to keep that part private for myself, just to really make sure that I was doing it for the right reasons and being mindful for the right reasons, not just for a show. I don't like being performative in any way, so then it just became very apparent to me that I did need to share, just because there's a lot of people. I'm like, this is who I am now. I was more comfortable with expressing my thoughts and my presence and my mindfulness recently as opposed to before. So what have you learned about yourself in this period? I'm actually pretty awesome. Like I'm a pretty decent person. Like when we were out in the world before everything came crashing down, you just have so much access to other people's opinions of you. And you might rub somebody out the wrong way, you might play a villain in somebody else's story. So I started doubting, I'm like, maybe I'm a bit of an a-hole. Can I say that? I'm probably not that as nice as I think. So I started thinking, listening to your own worst reviews. But then I started myself,
reflecting.
I'm not awful at all. My intentions are mostly 90% pure. The other 10% is kind of whatever.
There's petty Denola.
I can be petty.
We'll talk about petty Denola later on. But let's talk a bit about mindfulness, because you mentioned mindfulness, and this conversation is kind of going in that direction. What does mindfulness actually mean to you personally?
To me personally, mindfulness is being self-aware enough to take stock and also self-correct and see your blind spots, and also see the duality in all things and understand that the duality is not real. So everyone is right based on their own perspective, and really just allowing and holding space for the world to be as it is and to be in a state of flow. That's what it is.
That's a beautiful description. When did you start practicing? When did you feel like you started practicing mindfulness?
It was February 2018. That's when I was shaken awake. And then since then it's been a daily practice. Like every time I feel like I'm out of alignment with myself, I just go back in and I observe. I feel tension in my body. I can actually physically feel energy in my body now, and I try and move it around and I understand where it's coming from. So more so over the past year, the past actual 12 months, definitely been more mindful and more aware.
So when you say February 2018, you don't necessarily tell me what happened, but how were you feeling at that point? What was that transition?
It wasn't even anything dramatic. I wish it was a dramatic.
You just showed up.
I was held at gunpoint and then my life flashed before my eyes. No, it wasn't that.
It was a conscious decision, you just said.
Not even. I was literally, when I said I was shaking awake, I remember it was I woke up at 5 a.m. I was, staying at a friend's in London, and it was actually very picturesque. I mean, as with most things in my life, it's extremely dramatic for no reason. My life literally is like a movie sometimes. I'm not even lying. It's like a rom-com / slasher, thriller biopic. It's really weird. I woke up at 5 a.m. and it was during the Beats from the East snowstorm in London, and it was snowing outside, and I was running a temperature. I was extremely hot. The flat I was in was very cold, but then I was just I didn't feel sick, but I was burning up. And then the minute I woke up, I started I picked up my phone, and the first thing that came up was just learning about the energy body and stuff like that. And then I started opening my mind to different things I had never thought about before. and my world just became bigger. And when it became bigger, I became aware of more of my own shadow, and then I started bringing that to the surface and started like dissecting that. And around the same time, a huge transformational shift occurred with even just like a lot of events in my life, like career-wise, in my personal life as well, even with friends. Like there was a mass exodus of people, and I thought that I was losing my mind and I was like the worst person, but then I understand now that it was a purging process because I was elevating and I was changing on a very cellular, visceral level too. So yeah, it was very interesting.
And I mean, that's the beauty of mindfulness. Like, I feel like a lot of times when you talk about mindfulness or, being Zen and any of those things, like people just picture you on a meditation mat somewhere, sitting down, and it's just like, it's really just unlearning a lot of the things that we've learned over time. Because if you really think about it, like when we were kids, we sort of practiced mindfulness. Like we were present, you were listening, yes, you were more fearless, you were more in tune with your, with your body, with your mind and all of those things. And it's like you adults.
And then...
and everything is coming for your attention. There's so much in the media. There's so many conversations happening. And then, you almost now become a zombie, and it's like you have to go back to, again.
We're learning all the things that we learned to, I would say, know who you are outside the trauma of growing up. Because growing up is traumatic.
Right.
But yeah, people think that, being mindful is like being all zen and like, namaste. No, it actually is, honestly, you like 9 times out of 10, it feels like you're losing your mind.
Right.
And then the other, like 1 out of 10 times is kind of like you get moments of clarity that makes it worth it.
Yeah.
It's hard. Like there's so many things that even small conversations about seemingly insignificant things as a child affect the way that you see the world in the future. And I've done a lot of inner child work and memory work and just going back and reparenting myself and being like, hey, you see this world this way based on this memory.
Yeah.
And I go back and I'm like, I tell my younger self that like, you're not awful, like you just made a mistake, and because
absolutely,
where you're sort of like, don't do that, that's bad, right. And you're like, oh my gosh, maybe I'm terrible.
I love that you're sharing this. I had a conversation yesterday around this, right? Around how the things that happen in our childhood just kind of seep into our subconscious, and then as an adult, like you go through so much, and then if you go through like things like psychotherapy, like you start to figure out, oh wow, like this happened, and sometimes it's not even that people said bad things to us or said negative things to you, it's about your interpretation of what was said.
100%.
So sometimes it's like you can say the same thing to 3 kids,
right?
And one internalizes a different way or processes a different way,
exactly.
So it changes over time.
Yeah.
I also know like it's difficult to practice mindfulness in the environment that we live in, because there's also there's like mindfulness, living in a different country, and there's like mindfulness being living in a space where not everyone, or let me just say, like there's a very large population of people who are not very conscious, right? And so it makes you feel crazier because you feel like, oh, you're different, and then how do you integrate with everyone else? Because you also don't want to come across as that guy who thinks like he's better than everyone.
and even if you don't see yourself as that,
it can be perceived.
They don't see things from your perspective. They think you're being self-righteous. I've been called self-righteous before. My brother has called me self-righteous before.
Right.
Not my older brother. He's like, you think you're better than me?
Right.
I'm not self-righteous. I'm just you.
Like it's not personal. It's just
I mean, and it's you're right. You do feel isolated and crazy, and you're like, and I think as a highly sensitive person, I used to think that my sensitivity was like a sign of weakness. I used to like be like, oh, everything just gets to you. Like, what's your own stuff? Like, you can't take a joke. I'm like, no, I can take a joke, and I'm actually quite like easygoing. What I don't tolerate is when people try and like project their own insecurities onto me, and Nigerians don't necessarily have a lot of tact. So they say the first thing that comes to their mind, and the delivery is just like not the best. So I've had to learn to like kind of like just look at it for what it is and not take things personally as well.
So talking about that, right? Like, how do you think that people can be kinder in how they approach criticism? Because I know, like, with what you're speaking about, like, you're in the limelight, right? People will always drop comments and say stuff on social media and all that stuff, and it can be frustrating, right? But then how do you even think like people can be kinder delivering
a lot of things.
Yeah, like the things they want to say.
The thing is, it wasn't until this lockdown that I've never really thought of myself as a public figure.
Right.
Like, it's a weird thing because you're like, I'm just
Denola,
and I'm doing my own thing and I'm trying to make it in life. It wasn't until this period that I realized, like, yeah, I'm actually like, I am a public figure and I should just accept that and then, work with it and not run away from it. Because the more I try to run away from it, the more like things will happen. I had like 2 Twitter things this lockdown that were just like completely like insanely unnecessary and like completely blown out of proportion. And I was like, you know what? When after reading yet another day when I was trending on Twitter for the wrong reasons, I was like,
I think I remember one of them, but
one of them I would say was warranted. That's when it wasn't really wanted, to be honest, but like that's when they unearthed like tweets I made like 9 years ago about fat shaming. Even though I've been a body positive person for the better part of like 7-8 years, that was fine. I owned up to it. I was like, yeah, I said this back then, and 100%, like it's BS. Like I shouldn't have said that, and it's an awful thing. But then the other one, completely unrelated, I was just laughing under someone's tweets. I was laughing as the person, not what they said before.
Right. And it became a whole conversation.
God! And so I started thinking, I was like, you know what, people are so mean, and I realized, I've done it too. I've done it to public figures. Like you would drag Kim Kardashian, you would drag this person, you would drag you just don't get my able to get my friend, I'll never drag her. But you drag all these different people, and you don't care if they see it. And so I think a level of empathy has to be present, and you have to understand that like these people are human beings too. And so when I was like, all these things that you're saying to me right now, if someone said these things to you, you would hate it. And so instead of being like, woe is me or whatever, I'm like, I wish you will all understand some empathy. And I've told my followers, I'm like, listen, if you follow me and you support me, you just have to be a kind person. I've said it on my live a couple of times. I'm like, please spread kindness, be a gentle person. Like, my space is a space of positivity. Like, just don't be a dick. I'm sorry.
So one of the people that I talk to a lot is like teenagers, right? So really young teenagers. I'm sure some of them are going to be watching this show, right? Yeah, we'll beep, but some of them are going to be watching this show. And one of the things I realize is that whenever we talk about like bullying culture, right? We usually present to the victims of bullying, or victims, quote unquote, of bullying, don't do this to avoid the bully, right? And if you go online and you kind of Google stuff, right, it's always, if you Google anything that has to do like bullying, right, it's always how to protect yourself from being bullied, right? And that's kind of how the conversation goes. And I'm like, well, who's talking to the bullies? Like, you know what I mean? Like, why don't we create content that is that? So I actually did a video on how to not be a bully, right? How to stop being a bully. And I kind of wanted to talk about this because I know, like you mentioned in one of your interviews, like having gone through that as a kid, which a lot of us go through, and you don't realize, what it does. But I think I wanted you to kind of just, give an idea, if you could talk a bit about like why you think that people bully.
I think I've tweeted about this in not so many different ways. I think generally when people are presented with perspectives or a way of life that's different from theirs, they tend not to nurture it. They attack it because it threatens their sense of self. So that's definitely where it comes from. I mean, in my case, like, there's no reason why I should have been 8 years old, 7 years old, going through what I went through in primary school. I mean, there was literally a rumor at one point that I had AIDS. Because I was very skinny. What? Like, no, I was
makes
just like,
no sense.
Makes no sense.
Yeah.
And so kids didn't want to play with me and stuff like that. And I was definitely more effeminate. So like there was a time when one of my classmates, spread a rumor that, I was taking ballet lessons secretly and I had AIDS and all this. And I was 8.
And not everyone could take like that mental pressure that comes with that.
But then I started dealing with anxiety and depression from a very young age. But then I realized as I got older that all the people that bullied me, they've all had underlying like pain as well. And I've also, even when I made those tweets I made 9 years ago, I was in a very dark place too. Hurt people. They want to project their pain onto another person, and if they realize that what they're really doing is just like unresolved trauma within themselves, then they can bring it up for review and then they can let it go. But not a lot of people are going to be that insightful. It definitely comes from a place of hurt, and it also comes from a place of wanting to feel superior. So instead of taking the high road and being like, okay, I can see in this face, you go lower and try to push other people down, so they're below you. It's really, really weird. It's like the psychology behind it is a bit strange, but hurt people, and it's they don't nurture the attack, and it is what it is. But
because a lot comes from a place of insecurity. It's like you not dealing with your insecurities and your challenges, and it's kind of the same. It beyond bullying. It applies. The same for people who sometimes are extremely authoritative in like group settings and stuff. It's like they want to always be the ones who are in the front, and and it's a thin line, because it's sometimes that comes from people who have been insecure all their lives, and
they want their voices to be heard.
Yeah, exactly. So
this textbook exactly what it is.
right. I love that.
You can have it.
Your honesty on this show is beautiful.
Well, thank you.
And let's talk a bit about your self-confidence, because obviously, like, you're in a completely different space now. Like, you've grown, right? And you're still growing. Exactly. So you've grown, and but still, we have to give like lots of credit for that growth, right? Yeah. So yes, you're still growing. We all are. We're going to be growing for the rest of our lives, right? Hopefully. And evolving. But so much has happened within the past decade plus of your life, right, to get you to this point where you exude that self-confidence and stuff, and like you've been building it.
You think I'm self-confident?
I think you are. I think you are. I know that there. You don't think you are? I think you are. I think you are. I think that if anything, you're confident in your abilities as a person, and you're confident in who you are. And this is from conversations that me and you have had, like, obviously deeply, right? It's there, but I think maybe there's a part of you that sometimes you feel like there's a part of you that just sometimes doubts that you have done that growth work.
1,000%.
Yeah.
Like 100,000%. Like I think we never really see ourselves the way other people see us, and I would say this: I'm very thankful for the synchronicity in my life. Like, a lot of times when I'm feeling like, I'm like, I haven't done anything with myself. Like, I'm failing. I'm this. I'm not this. I'm not that. I always get subtle reminders, like people like you, or I get like a random message or a phone call, or like a message from like a fan being like, "You inspire me." I'm like, by doing what? Right. Like, I'm not doing anything. Self-confidence is a journey. I think that when you're achieving anything, no matter who you are, you're always going to feel imposter syndrome. Like, oh, I'm not really all that. Like, what am I doing? But I have surmounted a lot of different peaks and valleys and things over the course of 10 years. And so when people always say, "Oh my God, how are you so like, chilling?" I'm like, my dear, it's a trauma, because it is a trauma. I've been knocked down a lot of times. I don't really show people, that side, because I mean, who really shows when they're down and out? They don't really show that, because they don't have the energy to post that. Oh my God, guys, I'm struggling, But I have struggled, and you've known about some of my struggles as well. When you bounce back every time, there's a bit of reassurance that, like, listen, my track record of getting through my terrible days is 100%. So that gives you the confidence to keep going. And I know that no matter what happens, like, I'm so resilient. Like,
so the confidence comes from knowing that you'll bounce back.
Every time, no matter how hard it is. Right. Like, I wouldn't look forward now. I don't look forward to getting hurt. But, like, when I get hurt, I'm like, ooh, the comeback is going to be insane. Like, I was, like, in the middle of, like, being like, oh my God, everything. I'm like, oh, but the comeback, though, is going to be popping.
That's an interesting way to look at challenges.
Because every single time I've been through a serious meltdown, what comes after it is just a newer, improved, more fearless version of me. And I'm integrating so many different parts of my self right now, and I'm understanding that there's so many different ways to be a human being, especially be a man, and I'm just trying to, like, be comfortable in that, And there's a lot of things I've done this year that I've never done because I was too shy, or I didn't see myself as a sexy person, or a confident person. But I'm like, screw it, man. I'm gonna do dance sexily on the Instagram. Right.
And you give us drum.
And I gave you guys the wicked sexy video when I was like doing the things. Like, I would have never done that like last year. I would have been like, no, this is dumb. Like, this is like, who do I think I am?
Right. Yeah. So we talked about, like, growth, right? We've talked about your journey and stuff. But one of the things I wanted to also kind of talk talk about is manifestation, right? And because I noticed this throughout the period that I managed you and I worked with you was whenever you would say like you wanted something, it would just like show up. Like you'd be like, Adaora, I'm really just I want to get an acting role. And it's like, yes. And it's like 2 weeks later, you have an acting role. And then you're like, oh, I'd really love to work with this brand. And it's like, the next week, the brand will reach out and be like,
I never saw it like that.
Yes.
I never saw it like that.
So even for like, I remember one particular brand, like you were like, oh, it'd be nice to do some stuff with them. And then it's like, 2 weeks later, they called you to come and do work. And you were like, oh, hey, Adaora, they hit me up. And I was like, what? So, and I noticed that like every time you speak stuff, like you speak it, you're like, I want to do this. I want to, I'm thinking about this. And even the bigger dreams that you've talked about, because we've talked about so much. We talked about Ryan Seacrest. We talked about you dropping the New York, the New Year's Eve ball, right, in Times Square and all that stuff. And it's like, when I think about you, I don't doubt any of those things.
I do.
I don't, because I've seen you say stuff and it happened. You know what I mean?
It's so wild that you're saying that, because I'm actually having a crisis with manifestation right now. But over time, being a creative in Nigeria is one of the most humbling things ever. Because there's some days when you're going to be up, you're making money and everything. There's some days when you're going to be down. And it's extremely hard being a public figure and being broke. Like, it sucks. Right. Like, because people think you are, like, this larger than life person. Right. You're like, oh, bitch, no. Like, I ain't got the coins. Right. I will say this. My approach to life and success is very different from a lot of people that I know around me. I grew up around lots of success. And I also grew up around a lot of people. My friends having to sacrifice a lot to give us a good life too. So I had like, my rich friends and, my family we're comfortable, we're good, but I know what my parents went through to put us through the best schools and all that. So I understand sacrifice and struggle to a certain degree. Obviously, like I've had a very privileged life and I'm not going to like sit here and tell you that I haven't, because I definitely have. But I've also been on my own as a young adult. I've been in positions where like, I am like, when I say broke, I am broke. Right. Like there's like literally less than $500 in my accounts for like a month. Not now, but like before. Yeah. But I never wanted my self-worth to be reflected in oscillating numbers in the bank account. So I knew that. So I always do this exercise. Okay, imagine you have everything in the world, like materially, that you want. Are you so happy? And the answer so far has been no. So that's how I know that there's still more integration to be done and more alignment. When it comes to manifesting things, it's kind of like, the way I see things, I'm always like, why not me? Like, why can't I have that? Like, this person has it. Like, in my world now, I'm learning that I do live in an abundant, infinite universe. And I can't think in terms of like finite numbers, like, oh, whatever is in my bank account, or how many 1,000 followers I have or not. Like, every single thing is available to me simply because I exist. That's just the way I see it. And how I'm going to get it, it doesn't matter. Right. Like, as long as I want something, I make these like extremely lofty goals. So even if I fall short, it's still kind of like a sweet spot. I'm like, okay, cool. I don't have $1 billion, but I have like 2 million. Right. That's like 2 million more than I had 2 days ago. And you told me something very important about that too. Whenever an opportunity comes and you don't get it, just look at it this way. When you woke up that morning, you didn't get that phone call. Like, you could have easily gone to that idea without receiving that phone call. So even if you don't get it, it's just not meant for you. You told me that. I think that was like last year March. I don't remember, but it was definitely last year March. I remember last year March. I was talking about some deal which I ended up getting, and I even got double of what I thought I was gonna get. And I was like, okay, cool. Well, I guess whatever. But manifestation shouldn't only be about. It's not about an end goal. It's about inviting the feeling that you think that end goal is going to give you into the present.
Yeah, because I feel like whenever people think about manifestation, they're always so focused on like the particular thing that they're trying to manifest, and like that way. And yes. And then sometimes it just comes out completely differently. So it's like you dreamt and visioned this thing, but it came out in the way that is best for you. Right. And the way that is best for you is not always the way that you envision it.
100%.
Right.
Like, so sometimes you think that if you get a particular thing, it's going to complete you, and I think that's where it comes from. when you think into the future, you get a glimpse of a feeling that I think you're going to have. But what I'm saying is that you can have that feeling right now if you wanted to. I mean, I always joke with my mom, like one of her prayers that she'll pray for us is, you will stand before kings. I mean, I'm like, Mom, I don't want to stand before kings. I want to be a king.
Right.
You know? But she's prayed that a lot of the time. And then I met Prince Charles, like randomly in 2018. I was like, well, your parents were answered. I'm standing before kings now, so like, can we just like
the literal, for me? The literal standing before king.
Literal standing before king. So I think I found that some of the things that I've had in my head about what I thought would complete me or make me happy, I've tried to find those moments where I feel that way, even in my mundane everyday life. And when I'm more thankful about the things I have in front of me, then things just come to me naturally. So it's a very interesting thing. Manifestation, people liken it to material things a lot of the time, but when you're trying to manifest things, is to become in more alignment with yourself. Yeah. So that's really all it is.
Yeah, I had a newsletter that I sent out a couple of weeks ago, and it was called it was something around how progression sometimes looks like regression, right? So like you're actually progressing, right, and you're becoming a better version of yourself. You're actually like improving in different areas of your life, but then it feels like regression because maybe like things are like smaller. So in my case, for instance, like, we used to have bigger office, bigger this, many staff, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, you calm down on all of that stuff, right? And I'm in a better place, right? I'm in a better place mentally, emotionally, physically, as you can see, and all of that stuff. But to the outside world, right, it can look like regression because people judge you based off of what they've known of you.
Their own metrics
and it's like, no, it's not regression. Like, it's actually progression.
Like, my brothers and I couldn't be any more different. Like, my younger brother, he's so focused and driven to like make a lot of money and become rich and everything. And like, I love that for him because like it gets him out of bed. He's very, very disciplined and stuff like that. But I've tried to explain to him, I'm like, different things drive different people. Like, having $1 billion in my account is not my goal anymore. Right. It will be nice. Like, of course, you don't have to worry about money at all.
It's a great byproduct.
It's a great byproduct, but like, that's not what gets me out of bed. Like, what I value is my interpersonal relationships, being in alignment with myself, being complete on my own without, needing anybody or anything to complete me, just stuff like that. And he doesn't understand that. So he always thinks as if I'm judging him for like being that way. And I'm like, no.
But that's what you want.
You be you, and I love that for you, but like, it's just not what I want. Like, I'm not going to sit up all night thinking about how to, I'm not going to read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, or stay up all night trying to buy cryptocurrency. Like, it's just not my vibe. Like, regardless, the way my life has shown me, I am always taken care of. Like, I've never been even this times when I was broke or whatever, like I could be broke for like a month and then in 2 months I'll be earning like what, 10 million hours or 5 million hours. Like, it just happens, And like, okay, thank God. Like, so I'm like, that's fantastic. Thanks, universe, for looking out for the kid. But it's not what drives me and gets me out of bed. And I'm a very passionate person. It feels as if I don't have direction most of the time because I'm not passionate about a lot currently. But once I'm passionate about something, I will do everything in my power to bring that thing to life and to do what it is that I have to do. So yeah, I guess manifestation mixed with passion and understanding what your chest manifests to bring about, great results. So.
We've talked a bit about manifestation, and now I want to talk about your gifts, right? So the gifts, the talents that you have, where I really want to go with this part of the conversation is to kind of understand, when you're a talented person, you have gifts and all of that. People forget that like there's a skill, right? Like there's an actual skill that you've had to learn over time that has brought you to where you are. Right. So I kind of want you to talk about that a bit. Like, has it always been about your talent and gifts, or has it been more skill than talent and gifts?
I honestly don't know how to answer that question. Yeah. I was going to try and like pull out some BS answer, but I have no idea how to answer that. I don't, like, I always say all the time, like, it's a bit wild to me that I'm in the career that I'm in right now, or that my life is the way it is right now, because, like, I honestly don't know what I'm doing. I kind of feel like I'm winging things, but it has become apparent that, like, I've done things that have felt natural to me. So, like, whatever talent it is that you might think I have, is really just me doing me. Like, physically, when it comes to like fashion or whatever, I'm not a fashion designer or a model or a stylist. Like, I'm just somebody who enjoys putting clothes together, and I express myself through that. I've always been a bit melodramatic and theatrical, and I've always like heavily been invested in pop culture and like watching films and stuff like that. So that informed like my acting capability, which I've had to hone over time. I've always like sang at home in the staircase, like horribly so, but at least I can hold a tone. I ended up doing drama in musical. Like, I've just kind of always done things that I do normally in the open. And I've tried to make sure that it's presented in the best possible way. So I can't. So that's actually the actual gift. The actual gift is your ability to try things and to put them out. Yeah, and it's not.
And that's a gift.
And it's not because I want people to be like, oh my God, you're not that. It's because it's just something that feels right. Like,
right. And you want to express it, right? Because you feel like it's inside of you. Yeah.
But then it now becomes apparent to me, and I'm having a hard time with this right now, that the minute it's out there, it's no longer for me. It doesn't belong to me anymore. And there's a bit of sadness that comes with that. Because people can then take that and make their own inferences based on what they see, based on the intention behind it. So it is what it is.
And with that progression, like when people contact you, and do you find people like contacting you and asking you to do things that you're not necessarily like interested in? 1,000%. Because they're like, oh, Denola, but you should also try singing. You should also try this.
How be a designer? I'm like,
right. How'd you deal with that?
I don't want to be a designer. Like, I don't want to design clothes. Right. My friends that designers are stressed out all the time. Like, dealing with tailors in Nigeria, dealing with fabrics, and I'm thinking like, who wants that? I don't want that. They can do it. That's fantastic. I find that like I've had to fight with them even from the start of my career when I started as a style blogger, that I wasn't pigeonholed. So they'll try to say, oh, the style is Denola Grey. I'm like, no, I'm not a stylist. I'm a style enthusiast. I made sure I corrected them every single time because I didn't want Nigerians to pigeonhole me to something that I was carving out my own niche. And when you are carving out your own niche, either consciously or subconsciously, you have to make sure that you clearly states that I'm not into this. I enjoy this, but like this is not what my main goal is. I don't know what it is yet, but it's not what it is. So it's really just over time being like, I'm not doing this. Like even right now, like when people are trying to come to be like, oh, you want to give style thing? I'm like, I'm not doing that. Like I don't want to do that anymore. Like I love fashion. I love wearing clothes for myself.
Right.
I'm not trying to tell the rest of the world how to dress. Now, if I feel like it, and I feel like being like, oh, this and this and this and this, on a good day, then yeah, I'll do it. But most of the time, I don't feel like that anymore.
Let's talk about like your curation, right? Like with your social media and all of that stuff. Like there's a particular aesthetic, like I feel like looking at your stuff is just like editorial. It's like, you know what I mean? Like you go to Denola's page, it's just like editorial, and I mean, it's beautiful, right? To see all this, because I feel like that in itself is like a talent and a skill.
It's content creation.
Yeah, it's content creation because it's not just you just putting out images. Like you sit down, you create, you edit, you decide what it is that you even vision out and stuff like that. So like that wasn't always how your social media was presented. So like how did you kind of transition through that?
I started playing around with editing apps. I found it meditative. I just kind of thought, how about if my pictures showed the mood and the tone of what I see the world as? And I grew up, reading a lot of fashion magazines like the Vogue, the GQ, editorials on models and this. I'm like, why can't I be putting out pictures like this? Like, I don't have to go to the studio to like, pose in some avant-garde thing to like make myself feel special. So I was like, all my pictures are going to be like have a certain look and feel from now on, and that's just because that's what I want. Like, so from my Tumblr days in 2010 to now, it's just been me learning to communicate the way I see the world aesthetically, even down to the tone of my pictures. Like I'm talking about color tone. I just wanted to be as authentic as possible and be like, and have everything look uniform and have some uniformity. So if you see a picture, you know that Denola took that picture. Because I edit some of my pictures myself. Yeah, because
I know you do. And there's a particular style.
Even the professional ones that people take, I'm like, I always ask for something. I'm like, hey, listen, I love that this is your edit, but like, can I just do my edit? And when I can do it, I do. And when I do it, I don't.
Yeah, so you have like the Denola version of everything.
And it's constantly changing. Like right now, I've been in a very brown, celebrating black skin phase, which I love. But it's going to change. It's going to change something else. Maybe wants to do something more minimalistic and, clean and
Does your mood sometimes determine what you show for time?
It does. And also like where I'm at in terms of like my own expression. Like, we're constantly consuming information and you're looking at different ways that things are done and you're like, oh, I can do it this way, I can try this, I can try this app, I can do this, I can do that. So you evolve with it as well. Like right now I'm actually getting over like my current preset, which I've been using most of this lockdown. I'm going to like use something else. I'll create my own like for me. I do for me.
So what mood were you in when you created Drump? Like what were you thinking? Like tell me about how that entire process happened.
It just
Did you just like wake up and say I'm just gonna do it?
That's literally what.
Oh wow, okay.
That's literally what happened. I remember like I woke up in the middle of the night and I mean during my period is a song I've been singing for 10 years. Like I sing it in the stairwell in the house, in the shower, because I heard it first from Glee, but then it's a cover of Barbara Streisand's song from Funny Girl. But I remember like watching the Glee performance and how, they had just had like this tumultuous like experience getting to regionals and they started singing the song and then Michelle was belting it out. So I was like, oh, this is awesome. I feel like this most of the time, like the underdog, And last year was a year where there was a mass exodus of a lot of people in my life. I'm just without going into too much detail, and it's my rich sorry, I'm hungry. Without going into too much detail, I lost a lot of friends, or I had to like reestablish a lot of friendship boundaries. And I felt completely misunderstood and I felt villainized and all the different things. And I had to remind myself, and I think that's where it comes from now, thinking back that I'm like, I'm not a terrible person. Like, actually, y'all tripping.
Right.
Like, and I'm just going to do me and the song just started playing. Every time I'll have those thoughts, that song was always playing in the background of my head. So one day I literally woke up at 2 a.m. and I was like, I'm going to do a video to during on my parade. That's literally what it was. Like, messaged my best friend Sonia and Emmanuel. It's like, hey guys, I want to do a video to this song. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but make sure I get it done. Right. And Emmanuel pushed me and pushed me and pushed me. Called in a lot of favors. I masked, thankfully, a lot of goodwill over the years. A lot of people just came through for me and did it all for free. Yeah. And it was my first time producing, directing, choreographing, acting, and anything of that, singing in that nature. And I did it. And I was like, this is dope.
And the reception was great.
It was really
like, I feel like you broke the internet, because I woke up the next day and like
to release a video. I didn't want to be in Nigeria.
Yeah, okay, yes, you weren't in Nigeria.
I was in Nigeria.
I think we had a conversation around that.
I spoke to you the day. Because
we're supposed to meet up.
We're supposed to, my friend came there. He was in Lagos and I was like, I'm dropping this video. I just want to be here. I'm so stressed. He's like, just come to Senegal. I'm like, I'm not just going to go to Senegal. Like, I have to plan. He's like, it's fine. You're going to Senegal. So I ended up going to Black Rock in Senegal and I released a video while I'm there and I'm like, this is awesome. I posted it, I dropped my phone and I ran away for like the whole day. I spoke to you.
And the whole day, I mean, like, it was just buzzing. Like, it was like, if people were sending it to me, like, oh my God, I've seen this video, I've seen that video. And it's like, oh my gosh, it's such a beautiful video.
Thank you.
Like, I mean, your expression in it was just like, it was raw, but it was like professional raw. Like, you know what I mean? Like, very.
I still can't believe I did that. Cool. I really can't. I mean, there's part of the video that had makeup on it, and I was afraid that my dad was going to see that and be like, oh, but then he messaged me and be like, I'm so proud of you. Yeah. And I was like, I've always said I don't need anyone's validation, but once you get it, you're like, oh.
I would have been one of the people who would have said, I think I might have said, Denola, you need to sing.
Actually, you did say that a couple of times. I think
I might have, but no, really, like, because even just listening to your voice, I was like, oh, wow, where did that come from? It was beautiful.
I'm going to release a song.
Yeah, you should.
Just one song, just for bands. I'm just going to do it just for
You know what's interesting? Most people who have said that, when they actually went ahead to release a song, it became a hit, and then they became a musician. Like, I've heard so many stories like that.
Really?
Where it's like the person literally just goes into the studio, maybe they're there with someone else. So you hear the stories where it's like, they tell their story, and they're like, oh, I went into the studio with someone else, and then the producer was like, let's sample your voice, and then I get on the mic, and the producer is like, oh my god, that's the voice I've been listening
I don't know. I don't think that's going to happen.
You manifest stuff, so
why not? Like, you know what? Sure, let's just say right here. Maybe I'm gonna release a song.
Yeah, since you're the try again guy.
I'll just do it. Sure, why not? So I'll just drop a hot track, some sick beats,
and I'll feature on one of your tracks.
Done.
Because there's gonna be more than one.
I mean, sure. At this point,
remember what you said at the beginning. You were like, "Oh, you're gonna start telling me stuff." Because when you told me it happened, so this is gonna happen.
I mean, there's a lot of cool things that are happening even now. I'm getting more acting gigs. Okay. I have a movie coming out with Nia Kimalayo and A.K. Mason and Abosi's the DOD film. Yeah. I'm also currently in personal training.
Yeah, let's talk about that. We won't talk about the movie, but I just want to talk about like your preparation. The fact that people don't often know that like you as an actor you have to actually prepare for a role. Like it's not just a gift.
I mean, a lot of the other roles I've done, I don't really like have to prepare for it. But this one, I'm doing like I've done combat training. I've been working out with a personal trainer for about 6 weeks now. Yeah. And it's intense. And I'm also having to do it because I want to grow as an actor. People can say that, I was just handed my first Castle role. I've earned every single role I've done. And I just want to keep getting better. Because honestly, like, I don't think locally anymore. I've always thought global. I mean, that's always, because the world is so small now because everything is digitized. Yeah. And I'm like, if I'm going to be doing this, I'm going to do the best to do it. I don't care how long it takes me. So I've been
Weren't you in like a music video recently?
I was for a Major Lazer.
Yes.
Yes. People reached out and they're like, yeah, they like your look, they like your page, they want to put you in. I'm like, sure, send me the choreo, I'm gonna do it. And then donated like $100 to one of my charities. It was nice. Right. I was like, guys, I also said I had said before that I wanted to be in a music video, and I did.
See? So. I feel like when it comes to a conversation around mindfulness and manifestation, like you're such a great candidate for that, and you don't. I feel like you don't know it. You don't realize it. It's real.
I just realize it. So I'm like, dang,
it's real.
Well, thanks, universe.
Because like these things happen, and then like you put them out, but I feel like you get over it so fast. Like you're kind of like, hey guys, I appeared here. Hey guys, I was in this, and then it's like.
The next thing, and it's taking stock is so important. I have a gratitude journal. Yeah, I have a gratitude journal where I write some of the things I'm thankful for, just to remind myself, because like it's so easy to get lost in like achieving the next goal and doing the next thing that I don't really take time to be like, oh, but where I am right now, like this is what I prayed for. Yeah, and I've done that a couple of times, and it honestly feels so freeing. Yeah. So just be grateful, and then you can work on your goals and achieve them. Well, I just don't want to be that person that is just like toiling and working and stressed out all the time, trying to get a quick buck, and next thing you know, my entire life has passed me by, and I'm just living in a world of regret. I don't want that for myself. So
yeah, we don't want that.
No, it's very awful.
Can you just share? We're gonna wrap up, but I want you to share like a mantra that you live by.
I have a couple.
Okay, tell me.
My favorite one that is very easy for me to like recite. And especially when I do get panic attacks once in a while, is Ananda, Maya, Moksha. I think that's in Sanskrit. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. But Ananda means bliss. Maya is illusion or anything that makes you separate from yourself. And Moksha is liberation. So when you breathe in for 4 seconds, a deep breath, inhale of bliss, and then you're aware of the things in your body or in your auric field that isn't serving you. That's the Maya, the illusion, the things that makes you feel or tricks you into believing that you're not whole. And then when you breathe out in liberation, you free yourself from that illusion and you become realigned. So, and then
I like that. I really like that. Yeah. I really like that.
I'm super deep.
I actually remember, when you were saying this, I just remembered, it's crazy. Like one of my superpowers is like photographic memory, right?
Wish I had that in high school.
I literally just remembered a post that you did like 3-4 years ago. I'm not kidding you.
With that?
Yeah, no, you said, something completely different, but I thought it was just like really deep, and I want to ask you about it. I remember you did a post and you said something about like, when you look good, you feel good, and when you feel good, you do good. Mm-hmm. Do you actually feel like that?
Yes. Your inner reality reflects your outside world. Yeah. When people say that, I'm like, okay, shut up. Like, you're doing the most. Yeah. It's just as heck. But it's true. when you see the world through the lens of lack or hurt or like things just not going your way, that's a belief system, and you'll find that affirmation of that in everything you do. When a way for me to therapize myself is to control some aspects of my physical appearance, which is why I love fashion and style. So, and it's a form of self-care for me. I take care of my skin, take care of my hair, my clothes are always on point for me. And I feel more confident. I feel much more lighter. I feel more authentic. I feel more in my body. And when I feel aligned and present, then I'm less of a dick.
Right.
Excuse my French.
Right.
It's the lockdown. I've just been dropping F-bombs and S-bombs all over the place. And when you feel that way, you are just kinder. And when you are kind, it does go a long way. Being kind or being easy to work with or just not being a diva, that's why I was able to pull jump off. Like, everything adds up over time. I'm not saying I'm a saint, but like, I know that I'm not one of the worst people ever. I know I'm somebody actually, that time when I doubt like my goodness, and I don't want to be good in a performative way, I want to be real. People always remind me that like, yo, like, you're really kind. Out of the blood, like, thanks, man. I was doubting myself for a second, but you're right. So yeah, you look good, you feel good, you do good. And when you are good, your world's good. And when your world's good, then true.
Thanks, Denola, for sharing that. Now I'm just going to wrap it up because one of the things we do on the Switch On podcast is to share productivity tips, right? Okay. So I just wanted you to share 2 productivity tips that work for you. So like, just how do you get yourself productive? Like when you feel unproductive?
Dear, I don't, honestly, I procrastinate so much. Like, I'm the worst person to ask for productivity. But the thing is...
But what works for you, though? So like, when you procrastinate and you feel like that, like, what works for me
is fear of just, like, putting out trash content or, like, of having my name attached to anything that's subpar mediocre. And so when I'm procrastinating, I'm just like, Denola, it's not this 5 minutes. Just do it. So, it's structured now because I've been waking up early on Monday, Wednesday, Fridays to work and stuff like that. It gives me more ginger to just get all my calls and emails out of the way in the morning, so I have the entire day to rest.
Right.
So my productivity tips, I guess, would be stop procrastinating, or even if you are procrastinating, make sure that you just bite the bullet and just sit down and do some things once in a while. And my own driving force is like fear of just being a hot mess. It's just like very off-brand for me, and I don't want to ever be.
He said it's very off-brand.
That is like trash. So like I just do good work on time.
Those are great hacks. Like, it's when we think about productivity, we only think about it from the angle of like go, but it's not so much that. It's also just finding like
you guys,
that synchronicity.
Productive. Like I have to make people like you in my life. I call you guys Rise and Grind Twitter. Yeah, I'm not part of Rise and Grind. He says
Rise and Grind.
I'm not I'm sleep till 9 a.m. or 10 a.m. and whatever happens Twitter, and then if I work that day, then cool.
But you get work done, and that's the important thing. It's about getting work done at your own pace in your own way. Like it's not even with the timing thing, right? Like, when people say, hey, wake up at 5 a.m., it's not, you don't have to wake up at 5 a.m. It's up to you. Right? Right? It's different for different people. So, anyway, Denola, it was great having you on the show. Thank you so much for being here. I'm excited to see all the great work that's going to come out. Yeah, more drums and
global domination.
Yes,
I'm saying Adaora right now. I'm going to win so many awards. And I'm going to make so much money. I'm going to have so many charities. I'm going to be an awesome person.
I love it.
Adaora, and I'm manifesting it.
I love it. Live your best life. Remember, that's like one of your mantras as well. I know.
Low, Lola, Lafia.
Yep. Live your best life.